Hey, so I wanted to do a VR for Tops 85 401. He was he's celebrating his 15 years on YouTube, which I can't imagine 15 years on YouTube. That's kind of crazy. Uh, and he wanted us to talk about how we joined, when we joined, why we joined, what we've gained since we've gotten here. I thought about not doing this because I haven't been around for very long. Um, and I've shared some of it previously in a couple different spots. But I thought, well, I don't know that I've talked about the whole thing. And also, I just like doing VRs. I like hearing responses. There's a couple other VRs going around right now that I've just been enjoying. Plus, I wanted to talk a little bit about something that Mangini brought up in a recent video as well. So I'm kind of doing those two things at once. I will show some cards just to kind of illustrate what I'm talking about through a couple of these things. But Um, so I did not join uh, YouTube until March of this year. But in order to kind of understand, I need to back up into last year when I got back into collecting cards after a pretty long hiatus. And um, when I got back in, I'm a learner. I love to learn, love to read and do all those things. But I don't have a lot of time to sit and read much anymore. So I've got kids and jobs and all that stuff. So I just don't get a lot of time for that. So what I do a lot is I listen to books and I listen to podcasts. And I thought, well, maybe listening to podcasts about kind of baseball card collecting. Surely there's some podcasts about this. So I started listening to podcasts, just trying to find some that kind of clicked for me. And I went through a few, and this kind of goes into something that Mangini was talking about. He was talking about the two different types of collecting channels there are, and the same thing is true with podcasts. There are two different types. I'm not talking about modern and vintage. I think there are. That's not how I'm going to split them anyway. I think there are channels for people who are primarily looking for what they can purchase in order to sell, and others who are primarily about collecting to keep in your collection. And not that value won't be talked about in those, and not that some people who sell don't also collect, but there just seem to be those two. And I would find a lot of channels that were all about the flipping. I suppose is the best way to use it. That's the term used a lot, and I just didn't connect with those. How to make money with your cards, which cards to buy, what sets to purchase, what packs to purchase, how do you do this, and how do you and grading and all that stuff. And I wasn't into it. Part of it is just that I don't have a lot of spending money, so gambling on cards is not. It's just not something I can afford to do and really want to do anyway. And so I just was never interested in any of that. What I did find, where I found some collecting podcasts, I found a few that had been kind of started up probably back during the pandemic, during 2020. And I know a lot of people came back to collecting during the pandemic, but I'm a pastor. That's one of my jobs. And I got to tell you, pandemic pastoring it was a whole different thing. I actually worked more hours during the pandemic than I did prior to that. So it increased my hours, didn't decrease them. Um, and so I didn't jump back into collecting them, but a lot of the podcasts that I found had kind of started up probably during the pandemic and stopped about a year later, and so they were kind of older, and so I would listen to some of them because the stuff's still interesting. But I did find I especially locked into two. I didn't even find like James Beckett. I listen to him now. I did not find right away Iowa Dave and his in the shallow end. I both of which I listen to now whenever they come out. But the two that I found were Mike Moynihan's The Golden Age of Cards, and then Adam over at Splendid Sports. And this kind of is leading into why YouTube. So I listened to everything. I went back and started at the beginning, listened to all their things. I really enjoyed Mike's talk about vintage. It's what kind of really got me thinking, I think that's the direction I want to go. I want to go vintage. And then on the other hand, Adam did a great three on three. He called it. I loved that series where he talked about three cards that you had purchased, and then he would interview people. Three cards they had purchased that they were really important to their collection, and three that they wanted to go after. And that was just an exciting thing. But one of the things that I really locked into, I loved his Turn Back the Clock, and whenever he would interview Dylan over at Double D, Vintage Cards, and I didn't know anything about Dylan other than what I heard on the podcast, but he said two or three times in two or three of those, he would say, "Well, I don't really do a podcast. I'm more of a YouTube guy. I'm more of a YouTube guy." And I thought, man, I didn't know if I wanted to get into the YouTube world, because what I had seen from the YouTube world was the flipping stuff, was the how to make money, was all of that stuff, and I wasn't interested in any of that. And so I finally was like, well, maybe I'll go over and just kind of start checking some of those out. And and into the rabbit hole you go. And so I came over to YouTube, and I found, of course, Dylan's channel. I found Adam's channel, found Mike's channel, and it just kind of led me down this rabbit hole of all of these different ones. And I kind of slowly discovered more and more channels that I like to watch and just enjoyed viewing. Um, and so one of the things that they talked about a lot was going to card shows, and in particular, they talked about two. They talk about the National, and they talk about Strongsville. Now, just for personality reasons, the National doesn't appeal to me so much. I don't. It's just too many people, too much going on. I might go there at some point, but it's going to be in Detroit in a couple of years. It's a little closer of a drive for me. I might consider it then. But the Strongsville one appealed to me. The vintage stuff, it's a little smaller. It's close to home. I only have to drive about an hour and a half to get there. And so I wanted to go to Strongsville, and I wanted to meet some of the guys there. And so I was I was on the fence whether I was going to go. Again, not a lot of budget, and a lot of the things I heard about Strongsville were like, you can go there and find cards you won't see anywhere else. Now, that to me sounds expensive, and a lot of times that's what it is. And I didn't have a lot of money, and it's like, well, so I don't know. So I went over to Jason, Everyday Card Collector, and asked him. He was talking about the Strongsville show in one of his videos. I just asked him the question, do you think that you can go with $100 in your pocket and enjoy being at the show? And he assured me that I could, and so I had a little bit more than that, but I'm like, well, that's it. Then I'm gonna go to Strongsville. Now, if I'm gonna go to Strongsville, I'm gonna meet up with some of these YouTubers. I want them to see what I look like. So in March, I started my YouTube channel, and I introduced myself in my first video, talked about kind of when I collected and how I collected, talked about kind of my complete absence from the hobby, and then getting back in, and just how much I'm enjoying that now, and all of those things, kind of all the things you talk about in your introductory videos, right? Then I made a quick second follow-up video the same day. I made a follow-up video. I tagged those three guys that I talked about. I tagged Adam and Mike and Dylan. And Adam and Dylan both were very kind and both shared that video and shared my introductory video and talked about me going to Strongsville. And so I picked up a lot of subscribers very quickly. A lot of subscribers. I picked up about 30 subscribers. It seemed like a lot to me, but I mean, what I meant was like a lot of those people that I was wanting to see in Strongsville, they subscribed and watched and see you in Strongsville, and so I was thankful to be able to actually. I had, I think, 3 or 4 videos out before the actual show. I went there, and kind of the rest is history. So that's why I joined, and why I joined what I consider to be the vintage, but not just vintage, like just the YouTube card community, because there's some guys in here who have vintage but aren't really vintage as much. Brent Richards is not really a vintage guy. He's more of a 90s and even into the 2000s guy. He has some vintage cards, some great vintage cards, but what I've gained since I came was an appreciation for all the things that I didn't know anything about. I found things like, dare we say, oddball cards. And understand, I grew up collecting in the 80s. We had cards everywhere, McDonald's and Kmart and all of these places. You could hardly go anywhere and not find cards, and so I knew all about those things. But as I've gotten into vintage and realized that it's so much bigger, And so when I started my channel, one of the things that I introduced pretty quickly right away was my Hall of Fame project. And if you've seen my videos, you know that probably, I don't know, half of my videos, maybe not quite, are about that project. And so that's just something that I've enjoyed. I'll maybe show a little bit of that here in a little bit. But I've also enjoyed just getting to know how many different cards there are, because that project is tops only. I don't do there's nothing else in that. It's only tops, and it's tops base cards. So no all stars, no, once you get into the newer cards, no variation. And so that's been a lot of fun. I really enjoy that part of it. I've really enjoyed that. But I also wanted to expand, and I said in my introductory video that I wanted to learn the hobby more as I learned more about baseball history, as I dug deeper into vintage baseball. And I'm really thankful to have done that, not just for Hall of Famers, but for a lot of non-Hall of Famers as well. I've appreciated the channels who have a player that they really like. Jay just put out a video today talking about showing his Boog Powell, some of his Boog Powell collection off. I've loved that. I would love watching Rob over at Cash Cards showing his Veda Pinson. I've enjoyed seeing guys who just have cards that they love, of players that they love who aren't necessarily in the Hall of Fame, but just and so I've been really happy to be able to show mine as well, and I will show you some Manny Sanguian stuff here in a little bit, in addition to my Hall of Fame binder, and I just want to show you a little bit of what kind of I feel like I've gained from the YouTube community, and something I've really appreciated over the last 4 months. I've gained a lot of knowledge about cards in the hobby. Most importantly for me is I've gained some friends along the way, and I mean that genuinely. Like I've made some friends, and I've guys that if I would see them face to face for the first time, it would feel like it wasn't, because we talk a lot, and we interact a lot, and it's just fantastic. I love that. And so that's been important, because as most of you guys know, we kind of tend to collect in a vacuum. I've got a son who collects cards. Obviously very different than me. He collects Pokemon. I know that's like a dirty word for some of you, but he does a little bit of other stuff. He collects some football cards as well, but mostly just Pokemon is his thing. But we get to go to shops and shows together, so that's all right with me. My other son, not so much anymore. He kind of does a little bit here and a little bit there, but I wanted some adults who kind of understood some things that I love, and can appreciate some of the things that I'm collecting, that I can see their stuff as well. So anyway, let me show you a couple things that I think I've gained over the last few months, and then I'll wrap this up. I'm not going to make this too much longer, but thanks for the opportunity to share this and to do this little VR. And well, let me change some stuff around, and we'll see what we have. So this is my Hall of Fame binder, as I've, obviously we talk about this a lot. I talk about this a lot, maybe too much. Maybe you're all tired of it. But this is what it's looking like so far. I got room right there for my satchel page when I get it. But this is the 52 to 54. And then as you can see, flipping through the years, my goal for this has always been to show the cards what they look like, kind of a through the years, kind of a historical look at the different players and the different sets of tops. Of course, it is just Hall of Famers. It is through the years. I've got some changes I've got to make for some of these players. But I've appreciated getting to know a little bit about some of these players more as I've been on YouTube, and been able to just kind of share in my enjoyment of this, and enjoyed the interaction about these different players. So you can see I've still got a couple holes to fill, and then my last one is Beltray. So I do go into the modern players, of course, the modern Hall of Famers. I don't have a stop for this. This is what I like to call a living set. So anyway, this is something I have thoroughly enjoyed, and have just appreciated the encouragement and so forth from others. Let me show you one more binder. Move some stuff around here. This is my Pirates binder. It's black, as you can see. So we open up with my Manny Sanguian collection, and this is one of the other areas that I've really appreciated the community and what they've provided for me. Is as I completed the Topps run for Sanguian. It goes to 81. I completed that in Strongsville, actually, and since then I've just picked up some more of his cards. I picked up some. This is that's my Venezuelan card. That's the O-Pee-Chee and the Mini for the 75, the O-Pee-Chee 76, a couple of my autos of him. This is my TTM, which is again something I was completely introduced to on YouTube. I never had done anything like that. I just have a couple more back here. As you can see, I'm leaving lots of empty spaces because I've got lots of Manny Sanguian cards in my want list. Actually, the thing I'm struggling with Sanguian is as I'm collecting some of these kind of different sizes of cards, I'm having a harder time putting them in binder. And as I've shown these before, this is my collection. I picked up a couple of new ones. Mostly look the same in the front. The gold ones are from 76, the silver, because they're from when he played for the Oakland A's. But you can see I've got a bunch of different backs, 6 different backs now. That doesn't include my Pepsi disc that I have as well. So it's one of the things I'm going to have to work on at some point, is maybe creating a binder that has a bunch of different types of sheets, so that I can put different sizes of cards as I continue that collection. But anyway, I do have some more of his cards I want to show you that I picked up to add to that, add to my Manny Sanguian. So I'm going to again switch around a little bit, show you some more cards, and well, anyway, let me switch things around once again, and I'll show you some new pickups for my Manny Sanguian collection. You might be asking, does someone really need more Manny Sanguian cards? And the answer is yes, always. I was laughing, Dave over at Peacemaker Cards, that's what he says about his Barry Larkin collection. Anyway, because Sanguian goes into 81, he has a Fleer and a Donruss card, which you can't really pick these up at shows. He's not a Hall of Famer, so they're not going to have him in their boxes or on their tables or anything. So I went ahead and grabbed his 81 Donruss and Fleer, which I had not had. Of course, it's cards you know about, and just hadn't had a chance to pick them up yet. Picked up his Swell card. This is actually not a playing day card. This is from 90. But great card of Sanguian. When I was at Strongsville, I met Dave over at Vintage Dave. Let me see if I can get that to focus. See, it won't because it's focusing on his face in the background. There we go. And he gave me some of these Ted Williams cards. He gave me a Doc Ellis and a Mazeroski. That was really cool. So I wanted to get one of these of Sanguian as well. And then over at Vintage on Vintage Steve, he's been showing these cards a couple different times recently. This is the SSPC from 1975. They really are just great shots. They're great shots of the players. It's a good image of him. They are hard to find centered. This one is not perfect, but frankly, they don't get a whole lot better than that. And then one more I'll show you. This is from a Mattel game. If you've not seen these, this is kind of you can see it's a tear out. So that's my Manny Sanguian from that. Anyway, that'll do it for this this VR that has gone on for far too long. So thank you if you've watched it all. I appreciate that. Appreciate all of you. Appreciate the community and what it's meant to me over these last few months, and what I look forward to in the next few. So thanks a lot, and we'll see you on the next one.